everybody. Welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan, and today I am joined by a familiar friend that you have all heard on the show. I believe you heard her last summer, and I want to say it was right after the horrible Roe versus Wade being overturned. I think it was right after that, but the wonderful, the awesome, and the powerful voice of Kerri Connor. Kerri, welcome back to the show. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I probably went off about that, didn't I?
we had some righteous anger in that. I think that's actually what I titled the episode was
I
righteous
think you're
anger.
right. Yes, yes. There was a whole lot of that righteous anger going on.
I think we were all pretty pissed off.
Can't honestly say it's gone yet either, but hey.
Yeah, we can't talk about the fact that it's gotten any better because we sure as hell know that
It's
it
gotten worse.
hasn't.
It's
And
gotten worse, yeah.
I don't know. I keep hoping for the best, and the government keeps disappointing me every day. So
I know.
it's not a good time. But you have been a busy little bee. You have a new book that comes out here in not a week. Yes.
Yeah,
Like a week,
yeah.
yeah.
I think I saw that Amazon is saying that they're shipping in 1 to 2 days now. The technical release date is April 8th, but
Mhm.
I've seen it started to pop up in places.
Oh,
I've seen a few
good.
other places have it for sale, so I'll get it up on my Etsy soon. I tried to do it from my phone today. That didn't go too well.
Technology is a burden. But
Mm.
for everybody who's listening, Kerri has a new book that is coming out, officially a release on April 8th, and is Conjuring with Cannabis, Spells, Rituals for the Weed Witch. And it's actually a fun little read. So if you're into
It is
any
fun.
kind of cannabis smoking, I suggest you pick up a copy. Even if you're not a cannabis smoker, there's still some really great rituals in there that you could, I guess, omit some of the weed aspects of it, but there's still some really great stuff in there, and I think it has something for everybody. So, everybody who's listening, there will be links in the bio. You guys know where to find them and all that good stuff. If you'd like to pre-order a copy, obviously you may get it before April 8th, who knows. But officially, as of April 8th, that's when copies will be officially shipping out from Amazon and all the good stuff. So,
Yeah,
if you want to get a copy, the link will be in the description. Check it out. Shameless plug is done. There we go. Kerri, let's talk about this book. It was
sure.
awesome. It was so good. I might have read a little bit of it, high a little bit on my own weed, but hey, that's what the book's there for.
Exactly.
What was the
You know,
whole
I
choice
used to
for
be
it?
so scared of weed, honestly. I
Same.
was so I was so scared of it. I've had so many people tell me that, yeah, they were so scared of it. And I'm telling you, back in the 70s, especially, they did a really good job of propaganda in making us scared of it.
Mhm.
And I I I want to reclaim the grass, man. I mean, seriously. We need to accept that this is a plant, and I am not a person who says, "Oh, it's the cure all to everything." But you know what? It does a lot of good.
It does
It
do a
does
lot of
so
good.
much more
Yes.
good than some of the other plants that we prescribe. And I'm saying this as somebody who I know now that I was an opiate addict. I didn't know it at the time. I
Mhm.
mean, I wasn't like going out and trying to score because I didn't have to. All I had to do was go to my doctor and he, you know, I'm still in pain, so he would up my dose, and the problem was is I was still always in pain, and I was just
Yeah,
loopy.
because it wears
I
off
have
so much faster than the weed does.
Yeah, and it didn't work. It didn't ever really work for me, so he just kept adding more and more and more, and I was on so many opiates at one point, and I said, "I am so done with this. I'm tired of all of this crap. I want this to stop," and so I just stopped taking it.
Mhm.
That wasn't smart.
No. Been there, done that myself.
I
It's
didn't
it's not a
know.
good time
Yeah.
to
I did
just
not
cold
know. I thought
turkey
I had the
opiates.
flu. I thought I had the flu and I was going through severe opiate withdrawal. And now I know I could have died from the opiates. I could have died from the withdrawal. And anytime I think about that, I light a bowl of weed
Yeah.
because you know what? It ain't gonna kill me.
Now, here's the thing. I will put this out there for anybody who is new to weed, especially if you don't know what you're doing. please go with the smallest dose, the lowest
Yes,
concentration. Start
yes,
very, very
yes.
small
Do not
because
start with a vape.
yeah,
Don't
don't
anybody
do that.
ever
If
start with a vape. I
and
know
if
people who did that, and it's like, it's so depressing and so aggravating that a new person to weed could walk into a dispensary and said, "Hey, we wanna try something," and the person behind the counter sold them a 76% THC vape,
oh
and
my
this happened to
god.
people I know, and that shouldn't have happened because that's way too much for somebody who is just starting out. I mean, that's a lot for people if they have only been smoking, like, flower their entire life,
Mhm.
they take a hit off a vape, it hits them hard.
It does hit hard. I had a vape when I first, started using I use Delta 8 because that's the only thing that's legal here, but when I first started using
Mhm.
Delta 8 here, um, that was what I started with was a vape, and I would take the smallest puff off my vape that I possibly could, and I couldn't walk. My head was spinning laying down, like, it was the whole, like, have to put one foot
Yeah,
on the floor drunk thing,
exactly.
and it was still
It
terrible. I don't recommend vapes. I use edibles, I use 25 milligram edibles, and I cut them into quarters because that's all I can handle. I cannot handle anything
my
else.
my daughter cuts her 5 milligrams into quarters.
Yeah, it's what you can handle, it's what you can do, and you can go into a dispensary and you can say, "I want the lowest dosage of whatever you've got that will help
Yes,
with X, Y, and Z," whatever it may
yes.
be, and if they try to sell you something above 25 milligrams, ask for lower, because
Yeah,
honestly, it's better
exactly.
to go small and build up than it is to
Yes,
build down, because building
my
down might
weed
be a trip to
motto
the emergency
is
room.
yeah, my weed motto, that's kind of hard to say. My weed motto is slow and low.
Mhm.
It ain't a race. You don't have to see and it's not as fun, honestly. If
No,
you just
it's
and you
scary
get
when you get
yourself
too
really
high.
high exactly, and you get scared, you are never I shouldn't say never, but you're gonna have a harder time learning how to enjoy it if you freak yourself out first to begin with. But if you start low and slow and you get to pay attention to what it does to you,
Mhm.
and then you're like, "Oh, well, I like that. Let me try a little bit more of that." And experimenting is part of it's the fun of it.
Mhm.
But if you try to do it all at once and be just like, "Okay, well, I saw that Kerri said something about a peak experience and shadow work, so I'm gonna go out and take this
Oh
big old
gosh.
hit off of a bong when I ain't never smoked nothing before, and I'm gonna get in my comfy zone, and I'm gonna learn all about everything," you are gonna end up in the ER.
Yes. Your
Probably
heart
will.
rate's gonna go
My
through the
friends
roof, you're
did it.
gonna feel like crap, and you're gonna be
Yeah,
scared out of your wits. Don't
my
don't do
friends
that.
did end
Don't
up in
do
the ER.
that.
It was like 5 of them. 5 of them all had to go to the ER because this guy sold them a 76% vape. Don't do that to yourself.
Oh,
And it's expensive
it is.
besides. You know? Don't waste your money on something you are not ready for, and don't waste your money on an emergency room bill because you tried too much at one time. That's why I always talk about when you're first starting out, have a friend with you. There ain't
Yes.
nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Have
it's not
have
like
a
an
friend to
acid
kinda
trip,
be
but
your
they
sober
did that
buddy.
back in the days when they were experimenting on with LSD, the military, when they experienced with LSD, they didn't just send some dude off and say, "Here, go check this out." They had people there to observe and to pay attention and to make sure somebody's okay. There is nothing wrong with saying to a buddy of yours, "Hey, I'm gonna get high. Would you check this out with me?"
I kind of akin
It turns.
the whole having a buddy with you and the really high experience and all of that to anybody those who are listening. I don't know if you guys remember when I spoke with Stephanie Woodfield, and Stephanie Woodfield talks about when she does trance work, she has to have somebody there to kind of pull her out, make sure she's okay, make sure she's hydrated, make sure she's not going to pass out, because trance work can be just as hard on the body as a heavy duty high can.
Yes.
And it kind of, I guess you could almost say, when you look at the different brainwave chemistry of it, it's the same kind of thing. It puts you into those theta waves and all those different things. And when you get into those states, the brain kind of forgets to tell your body, hey, you need to eat, you need to drink, you need to do all these things. And you can stay in that system for a long time because your brain is in the happy place and it
Yes,
wants to stay there. It's not in the chaos of the waking world and it doesn't have to remember to do all the million things. And it gets to just kind of shut off for a while. But until you're ready to understand how to pull yourself out of that or recognize that the high is coming down, it is good to have kind of a buddy there with you just to be sure that you are being safe. And this would even count as trans work. If you don't know how to pull yourself back yet, have somebody there who can help pull you out
yes,
because you may
definitely.
stay in it way too long and that's not safe for anybody. And I am a big believer in trans. If you want to be in trans, absolutely. Also, if you don't know how to do that kind of thing, and you're learning from a book and all that, your experience may look completely different from the author's, just for the record.
Very much
So
so.
make sure
Yep.
you're doing it safely. And if you're not sure how to do it safely, ask questions. I'm always happy to answer those questions to anybody who's listening, just for the record. So, that being said, yeah, I would definitely akin the, first time high person to that trans work as well. Not to mention there's some really cool trans work stuff in this book as well to do with weed.
'Cause
um
it's
which is like your
fun.
shadow work stuff, which I loved the shadow work stuff. I thought that was so good in the book.
Some of that, I know I'm trying to remember which book is where Crystal wrote parts of it. I know I'm pretty sure she did help with some of the shadow work part. She loves to write the shadow work stuff. She's the one she has to cut hers into quarters.
Mhm.
But but this was fun for us in a way too, because these are both my kids. I
Right.
wrote this book with my kids. So I did one with Crystal before, and this time I'm like, so hey Tyler, do you want to help out? And he loves to grow. He has so much fun growing, and he'll talk to the plants and stuff. And so he was excited to be able to work with that. And I mean, some of the stuff, I know it sounds so corny. It does, but it is fun. It's like when you have a silly little rhyme going on in
Mhm.
your head, how can you be in a bad mood?
I don't think you can. I mean,
You
I think
know?
you could probably start in one, but eventually you're gonna be like, "This is so silly," and you'll
You
end up
know?
laughing about it because it's so silly. But it's
It
so much
is,
fun when you get to that
and
point
we
and you're just like, "I
yes,
don't even know
and
why I'm
it's
doing this. This is hilarious."
with plants too, they've learned, they've done studies that a plant that has happy, positive, affirmations give it to it works better or grows better than a plant that doesn't. So, sing silly little ditties to your plant and enjoy it. Why
I
not?
love that. I'm a big believer of talking to my plants and I treat them like my children. I'm like, "What are you doing? How are you growing today? What's the thing? How's this? Oh, look at this little leaf you have here." And I treat them like my
Yeah,
kids because
there
I grow them like
there's
my kids.
there are so many things in life that we look at and we're just like, "I'm not gonna do it, that's silly." So
So
so what if
what?
it's silly?
Life's too short not to be a little bit silly at this point.
Exactly.
What are you afraid of? Somebody gonna make fun of you? Then that person has some anger issues they need to work through, and that's on them, not on you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. So you got to write this with your kids.
I got to
What
write
was
with the
that kind of
kids.
fun experience of working with your kids and, seeing also how they've grown as practitioners and, contributors to your books and all that? How was that experience for you?
It's interesting watching them. Especially Tyler didn't think he'd have much to contribute. He really didn't. And I'm like, you do the growing, and I know that you go out there and you sing to the plants, and I know this. And so I think he was really surprised of how much he could contribute. And that was kind of cool to see because he didn't realize how much he knows.
Mhm.
He knows, like, how to grow, but he didn't realize how much of the rest of it he was really already doing, and that he had something to share and to contribute. So that was fun. It's fun watching my daughter because my daughter she's a lot like me. She has known she wanted to be a writer like, forever.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the only thing I can ever fully remember that's never changed. I always wanted to be a writer, and she's kind of the same way. She's always wanted to be a writer. So, I wanted to give her the opportunity to see what it was like, and now she is working on some of her own stuff, and so that's cool. I don't know that Tyler will ever work on a book again, but he got to work on a book, so he's happy. But it was fun.
Oh, that's so awesome, though, and that's so awesome about your daughter, too, and I wish her the best of luck with all of her writing adventures because, writing can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a major headache.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But it's what we do. It's the we're almost like gluttons for punishment.
Yes, I would agree with that statement when it comes
Yeah,
to writing, definitely,
yes.
definitely.
Mhm.
What was one of your favorite aspects of the book?
Honestly, okay, this is gonna sound so absolutely positively ridiculous. Um, we were trying to come up with a name for the Mary Jane magical mulch.
Mary Jane Magical Mulch.
Because I have used this stuff for a while and we called it the stuff in the jar. And so now it's like, I can't just call it the stuff in the jar. I have to come up with some kind of a name that actually will describe a little bit of what it is. And what it is, it's like we just take um trimmings, cuttings, all of that stuff. You grind it up, you soak it in some Everclear, and then it starts fires. It's your fire starter. If you want to use it to burn herbs, you can, throw it in a little bit of your cauldron or whatever. You light it up, you throw your herbs on there. It's an alternative to using the charcoal tablets. And we've always just referred to it as the stuff in the jar. So we had to come up with Mary Jane Magical Mulch instead.
I love that. It's so cute. It's
And see,
so,
these
so
are some of those
cute.
weird, corny things. But you know what? I got me some Mary Jane Magical Mulch and I love it.
Hey, that's the best way to do it, do what makes you happy, especially in today's world. You gotta find what makes you happy because there's not a whole lot of happiness going around the world right now. So,
Exactly.
find
And
what
it's
makes
a
you
good way.
happy.
It's a good way to use if you're growing, it's a good way to use all the bits of the plant that you would otherwise not use.
Absolutely. Also, make sure if you're grow in a legal area, please. Please don't break the law just because you want to.
Yeah,
Yeah, grow where it's legal. If it's not legal, then, use the Delta
I
8 stuff. That's okay.
I have the feeling that we will see federal legalization within the next year.
Oh, one can only hope. That'd be great. But, we'll do what we can until then.
I'm hoping. I'm
I'm
keeping my fingers
hoping
crossed, but
too.
I'm
We'll see
hoping.
where things with the government are stupid right now. So
Yeah.
we're just gonna leave
We're
it at that.
getting
We don't want to get too
closer.
political on you guys because there's so much
Yep.
politics floating around right now. It's not even funny,
But
but
we are getting closer. We're definitely getting closer on federal legalization.
I love
So
it. I can't wait for that day because that's gonna make so much life so much simpler. And honestly, it really was something that should have just stayed legal. But if you
yes.
don't know the history of
I
weed, it's
really
also
hope
very
people
interesting to
realize,
learn.
yeah, it still hasn't even been 100 years. Has
No.
not even been illegal for 100 years yet. So
Yeah,
I would really love to see it get changed before it is, that
mhm.
would sooner than later.
Yes. And yeah, if you're somebody that's interested in history and you want to learn about the history of weed, go look it up. It's actually really interesting if you're a history buff. It's
It's amazing.
annoying when you read about
I
you're gonna get
seriously,
annoyed if you're a weed buff, trust me. But at the same time, if you also enjoy history, it's really interesting to learn about.
yes, it's very annoying to know that it's so much has been covered up and we've been lied to about so much, and it's just so ridiculous that one of the biggest things that we've been lied to about is
Mm-hmm.
plant.
Yep. A plant.
A plant that was grown by our first founding fathers, but
Oh my goodness, that's so
This
crazy
is I
though.
am I am just for out I am 100% sure this is really why they wanna ban TikTok, is because TikTok made people so much more, connected
And educated.
and educated. We know what's going on far more around the entire world now. It's far more international, that's just it. It's
Mhm.
far more international than any of the other apps, and we've learned so much about what's going on around the other world and what people think of us, and that's why they wanna get
I
rid
will
of it.
say one thing, and I'm not gonna get too political on you guys, but if you don't know about the ban on TikTok, don't look up ban on TikTok. You need to go look up the Restrict
Yes,
Act. And then you
yes,
need to
the
call your
Restrict Act.
congressmen, your senators, and you need to tell them that you're against this because it's so much bigger than TikTok.
Yes,
Trust me,
it's a
read the
lot
Restrict
bigger.
Act. It's actually really terrifying. Please go
Yeah,
read it.
it
That's all I'm going to say
gives
on
them
it.
the power to pretty much control anything they wanna control. They can shut
Everything.
down anything they want at any
Everything.
time. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really disturbing and way, way, way terrifying. So, if you don't know about it, please go look that up. Again, it's the Restrict Act. Go look it
Yes.
up. Go read it. Don't read news sources about it. Go read the bill itself because trust me, when you read the bill, then it's going to all make sense to you why you need to be really angry with the government for trying to do this. Beyond that, I'm
Yes.
not going to say anything else about it because like I said, I don't want to get too political, but that is something that everybody needs to be fired up about and really needs to be fighting for because this impacts everything.
Oh, it
Everything,
sure does.
including this podcast. So if you like this
Can you imagine
podcast,
if email disappeared?
how would the world function? I
Well,
mean,
can't you see
honestly and
them?
truly,
Can
like,
you imagine? Think
how would the
about it though.
world
If
function?
well, we'd have to go back to the way we used to do things, and wouldn't that be a freaking boost for the US Postal Service if everything had to be mailed again? I'm just saying. At this
Ah,
point, I don't know that I wouldn't put if we get too many people in there that wanna put things back the way they used to be, we could lose things like internet. We could definitely
oh,
lose
yeah.
internet. You know
It
what?
would be the death of
Internet
the
wasn't
internet.
around in the '50s and '60s. Y'all want people to go back to the '50s and '60s. Well, there wasn't no internet.
There was an internet well, there was internet, but, like, most of
Well, it
us
wasn't
kids
accessible.
that grew
Yes,
up
it
in, like,
wasn't
the '80s and
accessible to
'90s,
normal
there wasn't
people.
really internet in everybody's home, like, you maybe
No.
had it at work.
I know now that I was one of the first people really that was online. I mean, I was online back in 1989.
I think we had internet in our house in '95, I think is
Yeah, I
when
mean,
I was able to
we
be on
had
the
the
internet.
dial-up modems back in
Yep.
'89, and I mean, AOL was on, like, version 2.0 at the time and was nothing more than a
Mhm.
message board. The biggest BBS at the time, which was a bulletin board system, you could have like 10 people talking to each other at one time. That was around here. It was in Naperville. They had you could talk to 10 whole people at the same time.
So crazy to think about. It's so crazy to think about, and now we have AI that runs the internet, so,
Yep.
it's really, really a crazy, crazy time to think about, but, yes, definitely check that out, everybody, because that's something that's again, it will affect this podcast. Like, it could make this
Yes.
podcast completely go away, so if you love this podcast, you need to go and fight for it. If you don't know what to do, and you're on TikTok, look up the Restrict Act and how to fight it. And trust me, there's about a billion
Oh, yes.
videos on TikTok on how to do it. They will tell you all about it, but I highly recommend it because it's disturbing. So,
It's very
um,
just
segueing back to weed and
weed.
awesomeness. Yes. Do you have any books that you're working on for the future? Do you have any like classes, anything that you got coming up for the future?
Yes. So future. And I keep thinking it's August and it's July, so it's freaking me out. So in July, I have it's going to be the Weed Witches Journal
Oh, nice.
from Which Way Publishing, and it's a guided witchy weedy journal.
Very cool. And that's Which Way
Yeah, I'm
Publishing?
so excited about it. What was that?
That was Which Way Publishing?
Which Way
Very
Publishing,
nice.
yes, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Um, I actually have a proposal in, with Llewellyn right now that I should hear about something soon. I'm working on a lot, honestly, but, one of the things I've recently decided to do, I'm gonna write my autobiography.
Okay.
And I seriously, I've had people ask me for like 25 years to write my autobiography, and I decided to start doing it. And it's because honestly, I've had so much freaking trauma in my life, and at the
Mhm.
same time, it's going to go over all kind of a lot of the trauma, but also my spiritual journey pretty much started when I was 6 years old. I just didn't realize it at the time.
Mhm.
'Cause that's when the dude I thought Jesus came to tell me my dog had died.
I mean, Jesus is a cool dude. I don't know if he's would ever do that, but maybe. I mean, maybe.
Well, and there's a reason why I thought it was Jesus. So there was this picture that was in my house. We had this picture of this guy, it was all over my house. And if I would go next door to my aunt and uncle's house, who lived right next door, because we were out like in the middle of the boonies, they had the same picture. And then if I went to my grandparents' house, who were on the other side of them, they had the same picture. So I figured this picture was in everybody's house. I knew it must be Jesus. It was my brother who died before I was born.
Oh.
Yeah. It was my bro and I didn't find this out until I was 8 years old, and my mother died, and my dad took down all of the pictures, and I said, "Why is dad taking down all the pictures of Jesus?" And my aunt's like, "What?" I'm like, "Why is dad taking down all the pictures of Jesus?" And she's like, "Honey, that's not Jesus, that was Denny." And I had heard of Denny, but
Mhm.
nobody ever said, "This picture is Denny." So I didn't know. And so I that's how realized then that I had seen my mom after I died too, but when I realized that that was Denny and not Jesus, then I realized that my mom wasn't even the first dead person I had talked to. Denny was.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you what, when we have a Samhain over here, everybody in my church has talked to Denny at this point because he thinks he's a ham and he gets on the Ouija board every Samhain and he talks to everybody. Everybody in our group, they all know who Denny is. They know exactly when it's Denny on the board. They've all become so accustomed with his own energy that they all know now. It's kind of funny. So I know my dead brother through a Ouija board, and that's it.
That's really interesting. So,
And then I saw he when my dad died, he came and got my dad. My dad died in my
oh,
arms, and as I was holding my dad's body, my dead brother and my father were standing behind the hospital bed smiling at me.
that's so sweet though.
So I've seen Denny, honestly, I've seen him several times. He
Mhm.
pops up every now and then. I've only seen a few actually seen a few spirits. I hear them frequently. Um But actually seeing them, it's generally Denny, and everybody thought I mean, they all told me I looked just like Denny, like, my whole life. I actually just posted pictures on my Instagram and my Facebook author page, so y'all can go check that out and see how much I looked like my brother who I never met, and being witchy, people are like, "Well, you sure you're not him? You're not him reincarnated?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure, 'cause I talk to him all the damn time." We all talk to Denny. My kids call him Uncle Denny. They never met him, but they call him Uncle Denny,
Oh,
and
that's cute though.
it's kind of funny.
That is very cool though.
He
So,
comes to the family get-togethers.
and all of this is gonna be in your autobiography, right?
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool, very cool. I'm very looking forward to reading that because I think it'll be a fun read like all of your books are. Obviously you know, talking about your past and your history and all that. But still, it's going to be one of those things that I think is going to be a really cool read, and
It's
obviously filled with lots of
honestly
spiritual wisdom, like all your books are.
one of the biggest reasons why I have always put off writing it is because I think people once they read my autobiography, they're gonna think it's like a dark comedy fantasy or something because so much has been so weird. I was like, I never used to think that, "Oh, gee, I went through so much trauma as a kid." And now I can look back and be like, "Let's see, I was molested by my cousin. My mom died when I was 8. Grandma took over, but then she died when I was 10. My dad remarried, so I had a stepmother also when I was 10. Grandpa, who lived next to us my entire life, died when I was 11. And by the time I was 13, my brother was in rehab for being a coke dealer. How the hell did I not notice?" You know, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
notice. I didn't notice. And then by the time I married my first husband at 19, I'd been so used to abuse that I thought he was going to be my savior, and he turned out to be just another abuser too. And then second husband, I knew he was an abuser and I married him anyway. So, you know, it's like I know I went through all of this stuff because I was trained to do so.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally trained to do so. And you know what? Bitch got the fucking whistle now. Whoops, sorry.
It's all good. Well, I am looking forward to reading your autobiography whenever it comes out. It's going to be an interesting read, I guarantee it. For those of you who are listening, if you have not checked out any of Kerri's books before, she has lots of cool, witchy, weed-friendly books. There's lots of them. I have several of them, including 420 Meditations, Wake, Bake, and Meditate, and also Conjuring with Cannabis. So if you haven't checked out any of Kerri's books, go check them out, especially if you're a weed user. I promise you're going to have a good time with them. And if you're not a weed user, Conjuring with Cannabis will still probably be up your alley. And it's okay that you don't smoke weed because there's still some really cool stuff in there that you can still practice with. You can always adapt it to your own. I believe even Kerri talked a little bit about making everything your own and doing it your
Oh,
way.
yes. Yep.
So making sure that you're following your path and your direction is always your best bet. And Kerri, this has been awesome. I always love having you on the show. You're so much fun to chat with.
Thank you. I just stuff shoots out of my mouth, and half the time I don't know where it comes from.
Well, you know what? It's still so awesome. And again, as always, you're always welcome back on the show anytime. When your new books come out, let me know. I'd love to have you back and we'll talk more
Awesome.
about them.
Sure.
All right.
I'd
Well,
love.
everybody, Kerri's links, all that good stuff is going to be in the show description. Go check them out. Connect with Kerri. Uh, Make sure you look at all the stuff we already told you to look about. We're not going to talk about that because we'll go down a whole nother rabbit hole talking about that again. But check out all the stuff I already told you to check out, and I guarantee it's going to be great. And everybody, stay safe, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.